I will actually get to that if that's okay. I'm going to go with my script because I'm a writer and I have to do that. I'm not an improv person or something. So, thank you, Chaucers and Mike DeCucci, for hosting this event, and thanks to all of you, of course, for seeing this event as a fine way to celebrate National Poetry Month. I don't have to say even in the rain, because it's not yet. That's one of the dangers of scripts. You do have to have them sometimes. And thanks most of all to our PLs, not just for your poems, which move us, challenge us, fill us, but also for the work of being poet laureates. And it's really work. You might not realize that if you, I live with one, so I know. The readings and outreach and workshops and occasional poems for water treatment plants, and all you've done and keep doing for community and for literature. You're all treasures wherever you may be. It's reading in the round. It's kind of strange. I feel like the stage should rotate or something. It's also a great time to celebrate Santa Barbara County's first Youth Poet Laureate. Madeline Miller from San Marcos High School. Congratulations, and we also have our first Poet Laureate ambassador, Kunde Chicoero.
Not present this evening.
Okay. She attended Dos Pueblos High School, so congratulations to both of them, and young poets, yay! Because some of us aren't quite as young. And sadly, that gets us. I meant me. So, we're going to start at Poet Laureate number 1 and go through the list. Poet Laureate number 1, Barry Spacks, is as missed as he's beloved. A protean powerhouse of creativity and kindness, Spacks inspirationally taught writing at UCSB for over 3 decades, wrote innumerable memorable poems, created hundreds of witty paintings, wrote fabulous fiction and plays, and delighted the world. I'm going to read his poem, Women on Men, which just happens to feature someone else in this reading, so I thought that would be good. This is from his book, Frets and Struts. Women on Men. My friend Chris writes about men, too attentive, not attentive enough, too serious, too frivolous, too this, too that, till we weep with hilarity when she says, I really feel sorry for them, and how her book should be entitled, Some Poems That Explain Why I'll Live Alone for the Rest of My Life. A woman's silent stare, waiting for you to do something right. Rilke had ancestors tossing down coins as applause from heaven for lovers who learned to be acrobats of love and soar. Barry Spacks.
Thank you.
Poet Laureate number 2, who is here? Perry Longo. Someone recently said she was the oldest living Poet Laureate, which gave her pause, which continues trying to figure out which poems to read tonight. She's published 4 books of poetry, Milking the Earth, The Privacy of Wind, With Nothing Behind But Sky, and Baggage Claim. She taught with California poets in the schools for 30 years and continues to facilitate poetry writing groups in various venues. Perry, please come on up.
Hi everybody, it's so wonderful to see so many faces without masks, and you're all here. Oh, it's worth it being older and have this beautiful reception. Yes, so it's weird. I was told I was the oldest living Poet Laureate, and I'm still thinking about it. And to celebrate, thinking about it, I tripped and fell and broke my wrist. So no, it was humorous in its way, but it does hurt. So I wrote a poem about it, and the poem looks a little bit like the cast, so I had to write a long, skinny poem called Cast. I'm not known for form, but I gave it one. Cast. Once cast as villain, later femme fatale, now it's just my right hand, cast as itself. Wrist cracked watching a crow instead of curb. My cast a concoction, pitch black, biodegradable polymer, molded until cooled, rock hard, ninja looking, ready to crunch any creep who crosses my path. Each step calculated, ex femme fatale recast. One must joke at one's age. And I'm going to read an older poem, thinking of Saturday as Earth Day, and I wrote a poem about something way older than me. A seed that was discovered that was 30,000 years old, and as a result of permafrost melting, they found this seed and the scientists got it to grow. So, good Earth Day poem. It's called Selene Stenophila. Easter morning, glory hallelujah, roll away the stone. A friend asks if I had yet written about this plant. Bloomed from seeds, 30,000 years old. Found in a squirrel's burrow deep in Siberian permafrost. Scientists potted them. Like anxious parents waited, prodded, checked month after year. I gazed long at the photo, its Latin name cumbersome for so delicate a flower. Finally risen 4 years later, glory be. 4 tiny blooms pointing north, south, east, west. A new world resurrected from a clump of plump leaves. Petals like wisps of baby breath. Frigid wings of angels preserved, impermeable to water, melting from above. A time capsule born from Earth's original womb. A miracle, researchers cried, signed Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Could it be harbinger, awaking primeval cells, not in our best interest? Soon dinosaurs at our door, the woolly mammoth, Adam's ribs sealed in straw, Eve's half-eaten apple, the snake's rattle. Pray, the stone has rolled away.
The one thing that's really wrong with this is I'll say way more words than any of the other people tonight, so that's a mistake. But they only get 2 poems, and I have to introduce all of them. Poet Laureate number 3, David Starkey, can't be here because the poor man's been in Rome since January on a SBCC trip he's leading. Speaking of leading an SBCC, David was the director and founder of the school's creative writing program. He has written many a book, from poetry to best-selling textbooks. Of course, he's the founder, publisher, and co-editor of Santa Barbara's own Gunpowder Press. He's co-editor and founder of the California Review of Books. To celebrate his current time in Rome, I'm going to read a poem from a previous visit there of his, and being David, of course, he wrote a book about it. Here's the title poem of Circus Maximus. It's a quickie, but it's got a punch. Circus Maximus. Nothing now but grass and gravel and windblown trash. A vacant lot drab and austere, where once in a single day you might delight in the death of 3 or 4 charioteers. All right. I don't have to read anymore. Yay. Poet Laureate number 4, Paul Willis, is a professor of English at Westmont College. He has published 7 collections of poetry, the most recent of which are Somewhere to Follow, Little Rhymes for Lowly Plants, and Getting to Gardisky Lake. He is also the author of a YA Elizabethan time travel novel, All in a Garden Green, and the essay collection To Build a Trail. He also hosts an annual reading in Los Padres National Forest to honor the life and work of the late poet William Stafford. Please welcome Paul Willis.
Thank you, George, and thank you, Chaucers, and thank you, Sarah, for the flowers you've been passing around. appreciate that, gift of the county. I'm going to read a couple poems from my latest collection, Somewhere to Follow. And just meeting Madeline, our recently anointed youth poet laureate, and Madeline tells me she's a senior at San Marcos High School.
Woo.
So, in honor of Madeline, I want to read a poem called Why I Miss High School. My friend John was afraid of snakes. Me too, of course, but not as much. So, riding my bike back up the hill from the tennis courts, when I saw a garter snake in the gutter, I coaxed it into an empty can for tennis balls, snapped on the lid, and placed the can in my basket. Then I rode to John's and said, "Want to see my new tennis balls?" I handed him the can, and the snake popped out right in his face before looping underneath the couch. John screamed a very high-pitched scream. Then he hit me, but it was worth it. I would do it again, I think. What I did do, with the help of another friend, was steal his VW Bug from where it was parked outside the theater on John's first date with Sarah Youngberg, the incomparable Sarah Youngberg. We popped the clutch and push-started it to a secret spot by the river, then left a series of notes for them, a scavenger hunt to find the car. John did not think this was funny. The best, though, was when he moved into an attic apartment with our friend Rick. This was right after graduation. 3 of us smuggled a girl who liked him, Twyla Tetford, into his bed before he came home from scooping ice cream. We unscrewed all the light bulbs and then hid in the bedroom closet. At midnight, John came stomping up the stairs, tried the light switch, shrugged his shoulders, dropped his drawers, and hopped into bed. Then he screamed that high-pitched scream again. Rick said I could stay here, Twyla said bewitchingly. Was there time even for the snake to pop out of the can? We couldn't help it. We started laughing. John threw open the closet door and belted us hard, everyone. That John, he was in need of a little anger management. One local poet laureate project a few years ago, organized by Sojourner, wherever you are, was we each did a little stint at the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History, and we each had a couple months where we'd spend time there and write poems about what we saw. In one of the halls dedicated to the Chumash people, there's a map with all the place names in our area that are actually Chumash names, and I was astounded by how many they were and how many we know, actually. So this poem is called Names of the Chumash. Just when you think the Indians of the central coast of California have disappeared out to sea, their names keep washing up on the beaches, dunes, and promontories. Pismo, Nipomo, Palama, Hueneme, Magoo, Malibu. The peaks stand up and word themselves. Chismahoo, Kachuma, Topa Topa. And the creeks and rivers and waterfalls keep flowing in their native tongue. Kuyama, Sisquak, Nahoe, Piru, Sespi, Matilaha. Even our towns speak ancestry. Lompoc, Ojai, Satakoy. And the avenues of our cities, they say Honata, Tall Oaks, Anapamu, Rising Place, Anacapa, Island Mirage. And don't forget our toxic landfill, sweet, forlorn Casmalia. Even when we try to bury the earth with garbage, we cannot bury the names. They haunt us still. They bless us. They keep us. They keep us always from forgetting, even when we have forgotten.
Thank you, Paul. Poet Laureate number 5, Chris Yost, is co-editor of Santa Barbara's own poetry publisher, Gunpowder Press. We get to do it. Chris is the author of Mountain Fruit, the co-editor of 6 more, it's hard to count, anthologies. She was awarded the Patricia Dobler Poetry Prize from Carlow University, selected by Patricia Smith, and her poems have been widely published in journals ranging from Askew to the Hudson Review. And all apologies to the rest of you, but she's my favorite poet laureate. Get her visual aid up. Please welcome Chris Yost.
It's good to have a guy on the inside. I was just going to read 2 short poems because most of my poems are short poems. This one is called Tribute, and it was written in response to an exhibit at the Santa Barbara Museum of Art, which is one of the most wonderful things a poet could have in their town. It's so good to see so many friends here. This is called Tribute. I offer you these things, my living Lord, wild flowers baked in heavy bread, a bouquet made of broken meadow birds, a sculpture of the lovers' boats for rent along the swirling edges of Charybdis, one version of me waiting in each bow. Uncarve me from this simple single skin, your kisses, cupcakes hiding nail files, the hinges from a dozen doors, and this I offer you with open, flowered hands, to you, my purpose and my truest mate, baking, waiting, and lunging at the gate. And we have written a poem a day so far, every day this year. So I am going to read one of those. This is called Fertility. I have forgotten several poems I'd hoped to write today. The blame can't fall entirely on me when the wind keeps a steady music in the hedge, thick leaves heavy with rain that makes everything living more brightly alive. I am alive. Like the living, I forget, and each day accept some surprise for no reason more than my being. My friend hurts her back, a dryer goes out. We think about war and the movies. That is to say, this sky will hold more rain, and the thirsty earth keeps drinking. The green is sharp, the color of luck. I see it everywhere.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris. Poet Laureate number 6 is Sojourner Kincaid Roll. She's a poet, playwright, teacher, activist, and most recently community historian. Her books include Black Street and a book of poems for young people with the delightful to say title, The Mellow Yellow Global Umbrella. And her poems have been widely published and anthologized. Santa Barbara would not be the same without her, and she's got a brand new book, free at last, that maybe she will tell us about. Sojourner, come on up.
How nice to see everybody that's here. This is a great turnout for poetry and for we poets. So I just want to say that one, I do have a few books, some self-published, some that are now being won. This one that George just mentioned is being published by a mainstream publisher, the Children's Division of Barnes & Nobles, and it's a poem It's called Free at Last, a Juneteenth poem. How many people know what Juneteenth is? All right. I wrote this poem 17 years ago at the request of a friend who had an online magazine called Afrogenius, and they were doing a special page on Juneteenth. And she asked she didn't even live here anymore, but she wrote and asked me if I would submit a poem, and I did, and they put it online, and it's been there for the whole 17 years. And the children's people at Barnes & Noble wrote to me about 2 years ago and said, we came across your poem and wondered if you'd like for it to be an illustrated children's book. So I said yes. It normally takes a book 36 months to be published. They've done this in just a little under 2 years. And they picked it as one of their IT books for the year just because I think Juneteenth is being celebrated really this year big time as a national holiday, which most people don't even know what it is or what its origin is. And of course, it's the symbolic day that the African American people in Texas were informed that the Civil War was over, and they did not need to continue to be in bondage. And so it tells the story of that day, of them dropping their shackles where they stood and moving forward to the next farm, to the next hill, to their own sharecropping space, what have you. So the book is going to come out in May, and a lot of people have already pre-ordered it and keep asking me, but it'll be here in this bookstore in another month. But today, I'm going to show it to you because I was fortunate enough to have an actual copy. And that's the Juneteenth book. And I'm also very proud of it because it was illustrated by a mainstream illustrator. And if any of you have seen the last 5 stamps that the USPS published, one of which is about a black artist named Edmonia Lewis, my illustrator is the creator of the art for that stamp. So I feel big, I'm in the big time here. So being Poet Laureate, of course, was such a high honor for each of us, I know. I think that over the 9 different people that have been Poet Laureates, the community has learned what a Poet Laureate is and what a Poet Laureate does. But one of the things is that we each are assigned for 2 years, and each of us has to write 4 poems during the year. We might do something else, and we do them for installation of city council members or at the request of some community endeavor, and so we get an assignment. I decided to read today. I don't want to use up all my breath. I think I left my water on the floor there. Chris, if you don't mind handing it to me. I'll just slow down a little bit. A poem that I wrote for the 2nd year of being Poet Laureate for the installation of the new members of the City Council for that year. And so one of the new members that was being inducted said, we speak for the people. He was speaking about the City Council members. And so when I got up to read my poem, I said, I speak for the people too. And so this is the poem I read that day. And I wrote for that day. It's called A Charge to Keep in Mind. And it's I thought today, if any of you saw City Council member meeting this week, you know that many of the people of our community were there to speak for themselves. But today I want to read something that I think will sort of in that mood. A charge to keep in mind. There is a charge to keep. It covers the tree keepers and those who seek to cut them down. It covers the petty drivers and those who ride in limousines. It covers the harbors and the hillsides, the landmarks and the NIMBYs. In all its disparate ways, it covers the voter and the non-voter. Equal status in the public square. Your charge is to your neighbor's water, your neighbor's land use and limits, your neighbor's joyful noise, your neighbor's refuse and effuse. Some people mistook that, but that means the water that flows out, or the sewage, etc. Your neighbor's children in the park, your neighbor's safety on the street. You have a charge to make a way for walkers and hikers, runners, climbers, You have a charge to make a place for swimmers, skaters, dancers, painters. You have a charge to listen, be we praisers or critics. You have a charge to hear us all, to keep our counsel at heart. We, the people, are a multitude, many cultures, many creeds, many life ways. Endowed or impoverished, we all marvel at the rainbow. Today we can begin to see a new vision, to hear with new understanding, to act in concert toward our common good. You have a charge to keep, we have a bond to hold. That's a charge to keep. And if I still have some power in my iPad, and it goes right back to, 1 second. I want to say that George already referred to this, but Chris is the editor and the co-producer of all these wonderful books that we have from Gunpowder Press. And I'm not one that submits a lot of poems for publication. I don't send off to the journals, I don't send off to the magazines, but every time there's a book that Chris is going to publish, he always writes me a note at the last minute and says, we really want to have one of your poems in the book. And so I generally comply and get something in at the last minute, or what she probably considers a little bit too late. So I do have an alternative. Oh, there it is. 1, 2, 3, 9. And here's the poem. Okay, so this poem is probably a poem I wrote a few years back, but I only read it for the first time a few weeks ago. And it's called La Conchita Montecito. It was a dark and dreary evening, except for the near light reflected off the various white surfaces, door, floor, shadows on a speaker stand, a faint distinction between day and night. It was as if the ambiance of dawn becoming day had been suspended, becoming one long moment. As the so-called day oozed in, mud gathered at the hill's top. 5 days of unrelenting rain, smushed into earth, unsteady, unstable. Everyone wished for sunshine, for the rain to retreat into some 50-year slumber. Just go away, they would say. Enough already, and so on. This certain day, this day that began like any other, in the little town that sits on the side road, the road that snakes in intermittent stretches from the city of angels to the pinnacle of Mount Olympus, the Royal Road. Every place where the road passed, a mark along the road. Every place, a story to be discerned. This certain place today, its story to be told. La Conchita, the place where banana trees grown from magenta blossom to full golden fruit, nestled in a flat place beneath the San Ynez Mountains by the great Pacific Sea. La Conchita. What could be the sound of mud descending a mountain? Silence. A great lumbering shudder. Silence. Some did not survive to remember. Daughter, mother, son. Silent. 2. Montecito. This would not be a silent affair. This would not be a slow ooze. This would be explosive. The rain, jumbo boulders shook loose from their infirm foundations. What held them let go. Like mammoth marbles on a domino slide. Something inserted itself here. You see? Busting loose. Tumbling down once giant hills, rumbling through the flame-lit night, following the way of water. From the mountain to the sea, widening trails and footpaths, hoof prints and wagon wheels once marked the way, rutting through fairy tale gardens like the bulls of Pamplona, through palatial estates where stained glass filtered the sunlight, where cut crystal chandeliers sparkled like rainbows, and skylights opened to the ever-blue heavens. Montecito, perched on ground once sacred, once free, chiseled on the face of a mountain, pitched with a view to the endless sea, facing the rising sun. This toll would take years to tally, a jagged swath across the cultivated hedges, slicing through steel gates. Rebar fences could not halt, slaughtering cocktails of mud and stone, sucking up carnage into the swirling mass. And I always say, all my poems are to be continued. Thank you. So glad to see everybody.
Thank you, Sojourner. Poet Laureate number 7 is Enid Osborne. Enid is the author of the full-length book of poems When the Big Wind Comes, set during her childhood in southeast New Mexico. Her poetry has appeared in regional and national journals, including Blue Mesa Review, Solo, Dark Matter, Miramar, and others. With Cynthia Anderson, Enid co-edited the anthology A Bird Black as the Sun, California Poets on Crows and Ravens, featuring the work of 80 poets. Please welcome Enid Osborne.
My goodness. What a beautiful crowd. So some of the other poets laureate have read in honor of Earth Day, and since Earth Day began here, this is ground zero, Earth Day began here, we celebrate Earth Day in Santa Barbara for at least a week every year. So it's Earth Day every day for a while, and I have a poem related to Earth Day about a saint, 16th century saint named Gobnet. She was Celtic. She had another name, Saint Abigail. She was an abbess, probably much more refined than I give her credit for in this poem. This is my idea of her, but she was very educated and a healer. So this is called Gobnet. She crossed the thresholds of Cork and Kerry, a jingle with jars of salve, poultice, tincture. Smock stiff with sweet drizzle, odors of sweat, burnt honey, roots, too pungent for polite company. Her passing made the arm hairs rise. She stood with her baskets, petting and pinching the brushy herbs like cat's ears, while her hosts sang out their litanies of trouble. Her calm manner gave the bedridden to exhale, as she hung a pot of water at the hearth, lit a stub of wax, and passed a dry stem crackling through the flame. Ruddy face wrapped, hands resting at crown, wrist, pudge, hollow. She listened to breath, dove into baskets, spun her wild pestle. When one or two familiars crawled from the folds of her skirt to circle, no one dared swat or shoo. They believed the bees instructed her. She woke and slept to bee song. Bees flowed from her hollow tree, bounced atop comfrey bell, feverfew, bone set, hummed inside the abbey walls. She had no fear of stings. Bee spit flowed in her veins. With grass smoke and a low song, she reached right in to pull out gobs of honey-dripping comb. Gold in the cloth for spring, for spider bite. Gold in a cup of cherry bark for croup. Beeswax and elm to salve the pot burn. In every season, she tended her neighbors. In death, she wrapped them in sweet, saving gauze. I know many of you in this room, and some of you are definitely descendants of Gobnet. A lot of healers in here, and poetry healers. So we've been having some big wind, bigger than usual, gale force winds around here. I happen to have a book called When the Big Wind Comes. It's written, of course, about our prodigious storms in the Southwest. But this is the first the first poem in the book, and it's titled The First Day. The day they brought the baby home from St. Mary's, the sky was brown and wind blew the trees sideways. They covered her face with a tender blanket. Father leaned with all his might to hold the glass door open. A chorus of howling damned filled the foyer as Mother curled her small white bundle tighter against her felt coat and moved into the jaws of the storm. They hurried to the Chrysler where Father once again fought with the door. The wind's voice was all and everything. Inside the car they took refuge from the blast, though the baby's wail was unrelenting. They were tired and sincere. They were sensible young Methodists, not from around here, and so lacking the hysteria native to this region, where every storm and pestilence were foretold in Scripture. They didn't think, even when the babe kept crying, that they were to be tried by this child. They didn't think our child is Hosea, or worse, even when the tree blew down and the power failed. They ate cold sandwiches by candlelight and took turns walking the baby who screamed all night long and would not be comforted. Thank you.
Thank you, Eden. Poet laureate number 8 is Laram Basilar. Laram. See, I don't have to, okay. Laram is the author of 5 poetry books and the editor of 5 anthologies. The latest one entitled While You Wait, and for sale here at Chaucer's, and also you can just access it online, but you want the book. I guess I shouldn't say it's just online too. Among many other lovely poems, poems written by each of the Poets Laureate presented this evening. The recipient of a Pushcart Prize, she won the James Dickey Prize for Poetry in 2020, and she lives not far from here in the shade of an old jacaranda tree.
Isn't he the best? Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Chaucer's, and thank you, everybody here, because you've been standing on 2 feet for quite a while now, and you're still there, so thank you very, very much. I'm going to read 2 poems of places that you know, places that are close to here. One of them is Arroyo Burro Beach. I'm sure you've all been there, right? It's called, what I want to tell you is that poem is in the book While We Wait. And quickly, I'll take a very short time to tell you, it was my Poet Laureate project in 2019, that was before COVID, to write a book, to edit an anthology of poems by all the poets in Santa Barbara County and City, and then distribute those books in all the waiting rooms of hospitals and doctors and dentists, because it would be a little better maybe than house and cooking and stuff. And then of course, alas, COVID hit, no more reading material in any waiting rooms. And so we decided to put it online, but a very generous donor gave money to print it anyway. And so I dedicated this anthology to all the nurses and doctors and cleaning people in hospitals and ambulances and everybody. So it actually did happen, and this book is that. And there's poems by all the poets in Santa Barbara County and in Santa Barbara town. Okay, thank you. It's a good anthology. Ocean rooms. The moon trawled the low tide far back behind the beach and beyond the black rocks into a shimmer of gravel and beach glass. A klimt rock of green, amber, gold that's hidden most of the year in the ocean's back rooms. But it's winter solstice, and a large winter sun is all chilled radiance this morning. The tourists are gone, the locals still asleep or on their way to work, so the ocean throws open its rooms for me, alone, lays bare a million splinters and shattered deaths, shells and boats and glass and bones, letting the sun stun them with air and light. All of this, such wonder and wreckage, unburied a life between sky and sea. I'm glad for this beach, glad for its tides, for things that do come back. Just as I leave, coming close so eagerly, a backlit wave swells, rises, curls, and drowns this instant back into its kelp-choked rooms. And as you heard, my accent is not from Alabama. I happen to have grown up in Belgium until I finally could come to this great country. So my mother tongue, I have two mother tongues, French and Flemish, but my heart language is English, believe me. In French, death has a gender, la mort, right? So you have to know this because I'm gonna say she about death. This is called Late Afternoon Stroll on the cliffs. You know the preserve, right? The Douglas Preserve up there, okay. Late afternoon stroll on the cliffs. As usual, Death sweetly slips her arm in mine, and we take a deep breath from the eucalyptus breeze. We both worked honestly at our jobs. All day, Death destroyed traffic with wailing ambulances as I killed hours and lines on 8.5 by 11-inch pages. We're fast friends by now. Death is much older, of course, but there's no hierarchy between us. We're both taking a break from it all, glad to watch waves collapse on rocks and pelicans dive bomb fish. I try to be sensitive to Death's guilt, that whole pandemic disaster that she can no longer control. She'll soon betray me too, and you, I know. But today, the gulls are silver angels, etching great cursive blessings in a perfect sky. So, Death and I make believe we believe that, and amble on.
Thank you, Laram. And we come to our final poet,
Yay!
current Poet Laureate, Amatria. Emma's the author of Tropicalia, winner of the Andres Montoya Poetry Prize. She is currently writing a second book of poems, Courage in the Clock. The daughter of Cuban immigrants, she is a Canto Mundo Fellow and the recipient of an individual artist grant from the Florida Division of Cultural Affairs. Her work has been widely anthologized, including in Best American Poetry, and recent work appears or is forthcoming in Latino Literature's Arts and Cultures, Cortland Review, New England Review, and Terrain's Letter to America series. She teaches at Santa Barbara City College and curates the Mission Poetry Series, which has a reading coming up May 7th. I'm sure she will talk about. Please welcome Emma. I'm a book behind. I owe you a book display.
I'll sue you.
Hi, everyone. I just want to thank you all so much for coming out. It is so wonderful to see new faces and old faces and faces not trapped inside of a screen. So thank you so much. I want to thank Michael and Chaucer's for putting this all together, and I really want to thank George Atchison,
Yes.
who is a master of ceremony. The Mission Poetry Series is having a reading on May 7th at 1 p.m. Saturday at the Santa Barbara Public Library in the Faulkner Gallery, and we are going to be featuring Bruce Willard, a wonderful local poet, and the two co-winners of the Alta California Prize, which is a chapbook prize awarded to Latinx poets writing and living in California. And they will both be there, Nicholas Reiner and Crystal A.C. Salas. Those books are published by Gunpowder Press. So it's going to be a really awesome event. It's going to be our first one in person in quite some time, and I would love to see some of you there. I have two poems for you, a new one and a newish one, and the first one is the new one. It's probably the shortest poem I've ever written. And I wrote it for the Santa Barbara Botanical Gardens. They have a magazine called Ironwood, and I wrote it about my favorite tree, one of my favorite trees in California. There's so many. It has a Spanish word in it, and it means little bells. This is called Manzanita. Of the lacquered branches, the healing leaf. Your existence, a reminder, there is more to this earth than war. Wherever it is everywhere. When I close my eyes, I can dream the last of the blushed campanitas you held onto at winter's end. They live inside me now, persisting. And this last poem is called The Function of a Wing. They arrive as red masked druids, ghost the edge of the desolate golf course. Sandhill cranes, poised between the tall grass and oaks lathered in moss. A fading, this pocket of homes, long past afternoons of stickball and smoking grills. Hearts alert to the pulse of clouds shining, despite how loneliness drifts beside us all. Each day's arc is a wing, a wish hurling across the sky, and also time, because what is the clock but a ship of travel we must board upon our first breath? I have read about a girl who pinned her healing to the making of cranes, and how they navigate by starlight, instinct, the ancient maps scored inside the lace of their bones. They know how to dance. They arrive as themselves. A newborn will curl around her mother's temples in peace, a place where no harm will descend in its poisonous light, its cell-stripping forms, a place of quiet and journey that is a kind of returning to love. Thank you.
If you want to say something too, I don't want to.
Before we close the night out, if you'd like to purchase the poets books, please go to Jeremy right there first, and then take them over to the registrar. That includes Emma's book as well?
Yes, I just got it.
Okay. So Emma's Tropicalia as well. Quick announcement, June 5th, I think we have Sojourner coming back here to launch her book. So please come. You can't have this one because it's not out yet, so I have to give it back. No, sorry. And thank you to all the poets for coming and participating, but also thank you to my man George here. Forget Morgan Freeman.
Hey, George!
I want you to marry
All thanks to Mike and the Chaucers for this. Thanks to all of you proving that Santa Barbara stands for poetry.
Yes.
And what a delightful Whitman sampler of words that only makes me wish we could hear 2 or 20 more poems from each of our laureates. Paul Willis has this terrific phrase for what they do, saying the job is to be a secular chaplain for Santa Barbara. I think we can say without a doubt we've been blessed by all our PL's words, wisdom, wisecracks, rhythms, righteousness, and revelation. Thank you.